Today on the show, the lesson to be learned from this country's obsession with identity politics.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
You know, in one sense, I absolutely agree with them. It is time for a female president. It is time for a female president of color. It is time for a female president of color who is non-cisgendered. It is time for a female president of color, non-cisgendered, non-binary in their sexual choices, and atheist to become president of these United States of America and leader of the free world. Why do I think it's time for all these things? Because they shouldn't be a freaking issue. They shouldn't. They should. Identity politics is the most destructive thing. It is the most destructive. It is the most knuckle dragging. It is the most can't get out of your own way piece of stupidity I can think of in 2019. I understand exactly where it comes from. I understand that people can feel like they weren't represented. I understand people can feel as though once they are represented, they will have a voice. Things will be different for them. But the bottom line is, this doesn't do anybody any good. And what's insane is what's going on now with Beto O'Rourke. He's being torn down by his own folks. I mean, the civil war that is happening right now on the left is an intense thing. And it is so pointless. The right doesn't even have to poke holes in Beto O'Rourke. That ship will be sunk from within, is my best guess. He's too young, he's too white, he's too male, he's too privileged. What was that he said the other day? He felt like he was born to be president or born to run or something of that nature. And people accused him of saying it was his birthright to be president. No, I don't know what Beto O'Rourke meant, nor do I really care that much, but I'm going to hazard a guess that he did not mean it's my right to be president. He perhaps meant that he felt as though he had a calling. He felt like he had a life's mission. He felt like he would do a really good job. He was trying to romanticize himself as a presidential candidate and saying, I was born to do it. Seemed like a good way to do that. And people jumped down the guy's throat saying, oh, you as a white male, you were born to do it. Were you? Tearing him down. Not that I have a problem with any of this. I'm popping some popcorn. I'm here for the show. I am here to watch. But it is an interesting microcosm of the self-destructive nature of identity politics. You and I have talked about this in the past, but when I was a little kid, I moved to England. And you know who was prime minister in England at the time? Margaret Thatcher. You know who was the queen at the time? The Queen. The two biggest and arguably most powerful figures in all of England were both female. That is what I grew up in. That is what I grew up accepting as the norm. The idea that you couldn't be a world leader and be a female, so beyond my comprehension. So it is shameful, beneath us, that this is even an issue. That we haven't, in this country's history, come to the conclusion at one point or another that of the candidates made available to us, a female would be the best bet. And that is because, well, again, shamefully, the idea of a female candidate would have been a bit of a joke up until an embarrassingly recent part of our history. That's horrible. That's awful. That's something we can't do anything about. But here's the thing. Picking someone based on what's between their legs, or the color of their skin, or who they love, or how they identify, or any of the above, is a self-destructive path to nowhere. And it's so obvious, so glaringly obvious. You shouldn't vote for someone based on the color of their skin. That's ridiculous. That's as ridiculous as saying, I'm going to vote for the white guy because I'm white and a guy. How knuckle-dragging does that sound? How much of an under-evolved, prejudicial simian does that make you sound like if you go around saying things like that? When people can hear you, not even just quietly to yourself, because you know you should be ashamed of it, but that's really how you feel. It's freaking ridiculous. If a white man said, I'm going to vote for that guy because he's a white guy and I'm a white guy, and I feel like he'll understand my needs better as a white guy, people would laugh at him, people would call him a racist, people would call him a moron. And it's a weird twist that the left is putting on it, because they're not saying, I'm going to vote for her because she's the woman of color. They're saying, Beto, hell no. He's too white. He's too male. He's too privileged. How could he possibly speak for us? And I'm not saying Beto's a guy, but I'm saying there's issues of principle at stake here. He might be the guy. He might be the guy that can carry your side of the political fence to victory in 2020. How lousy would you feel if you glossed over everything that could give your folks the potential to win? And I say yours, not being a Republican or a Democrat, just being more of an observer that thinks that Republican and Democrat are like Coke and Pepsi, brown sugary water that you need to avoid ingesting too much of, that appear to be in competition but are really the same, both in the brown sugary water business. But here's the thing. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in the idea of somebody's color of skin or religious preferences or sexual orientation or any of the above making a lick of freaking difference when it comes to their ability to serve the public. It is so beneath us that we do not have any point in our history where there has been a woman president. That is beneath us. Yes, absolutely. But whether you are going to vote Republican or Democrat, it would be even further beneath us to deny ourselves an effective leader because of who they are not, as opposed to who they are.
Real radio. 104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So I get it. I absolutely understand it. People that feel like they haven't had a voice, people that feel like they've been underrepresented in our political process and in society, want to feel like they have a voice, want to feel like they have a representative, want to feel like they have somebody on their side that is going to pay attention to their needs and help make the things that are important to them happen. I get that. I understand that. But it's a false economy. And I can tell you this because as a white dude, there's a lot of white dudes that I do not agree with in any way, shape, or form. It has nothing to do with them being white. It has to do with them being wrong and me being right in my mind during these situations. Identity politics will get us nowhere. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care if the left eats itself from inside out. I don't have a dog in the race when it comes to Republican or Democrat. I think it would get really interesting if someone decided he was going to challenge Trump or she was going to challenge Trump. That could be interesting. If Mitt Romney decided to make a go of it, I'm sure he won't, but there were rumblings. Oh, man, I would pull up a chair for a ringside seat to that because it would get just as crazy and nasty on the right as it's getting on the left. But what is interesting about the conflict that went on the right when Donald Trump was doing his very best to nab the nomination, which he obviously did, was, well, he went after people not necessarily on issues of substance. This was not a clean fight in any way, shape, or form. But he went after people based on their character, not the color of their skin. I mean, the irony can't be lost on people, right? Folks were accusing Donald Trump of being a racist. And during the Republican primaries, did he go after Ted Cruz based on the fact that he was the son of an immigrant? No, he did not. Did he go after people based on race or gender? No, he did not. He said they were liars. He said they had little hands compared to his. He said that they were unhinged or boring or low energy. At no point did he go after them on matters of race or ethnicity or religion or any of the above. You're a low energy liar, was his battle cry. Meanwhile, what is happening with Beto O'Rourke on the left is completely 100% based on race. Do you see where the confusion comes in here? And like I said, I'm not taking sides. There's probably people on the left going, oh, he's siding with Trump. He's saying Trump's not a racist. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all. But I said that the side of the political fence that purports to be all about equality and all about everybody getting a fair shake of the stick and all about everybody having a chance to be leader of the free world despite what's between their legs, despite the color of their skin and all of the above, they're going after people based almost completely on arguments of sex and religion and all of the above. Sorry, sex, race, and religion and all of the above. A bunch of Democrat operatives in a recent political blurb said that Beto O'Rourke is getting the star treatment because he's a white male. Ooh, they just said it. They just said it. That shouldn't matter. We're all about equality. No, he's too white, he's too male. But the equality? Tearing someone down because of their race? Natasha Karecki said, since announcing her 2020 run, Elizabeth Warren has dispensed 3 major policy proposals, held 30 campaign events, and visited nearly a dozen states. Since announcing his 2020 run, Beto O'Rourke has made one visit to Iowa, where he vaguely outlined his positions, including from atop a cafe counter. Guess who's getting the star treatment? The breathless sweepstake cable television coverage that greeted the former Texas congressman's first campaign events stunned and frustrated many Democratic operatives, particularly women who viewed it as an example of the double standard at work in the historically diverse presidential field. To them, O'Rourke, a white male candidate, had already been ordained the next sensation. His entry into the race greased by live television shots and O'Rourke-centric panels. Here's the thing about Beto O'Rourke. He got a little spark going and he's able to fan that flame. As somebody that grew up skating badly, let me tell you, Beto O'Rourke's a bad skater. That didn't stop him from hopping on a skateboard at every available opportunity. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess Bernie Sanders probably skates better than Beto O'Rourke. But he knew how to play to the media. The footage of him playing bass in a punk rock band, that certainly did the rounds. I skate. I wear Metallica t-shirts. And I play bass. Slap the bass, man. It's all very energizing, relatable stuff. And Beto O'Rourke has done a bang-up job of getting that stuff out there. Beto O'Rourke has combed his hair like a Kennedy, talked about how he plays bass, and skateboarded around every press conference he's ever attended, it would seem. He's a media darling because he's good at being a media darling. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying his style winning over Elizabeth Warren's action is the way it should be. I'm just saying that's the way it is. Is it because he's a white male? I very much doubt it's because it's white male. It's because he knows how to play the game a little bit better. He knows how to be a rock star a little bit better, because at one point he really wanted to be a rock star. That whole playing bass in a punk rock band. Here's one, and this is what I love about punk rock. If you have something to say, you can be in a punk rock band. You don't have to be the most technically proficient musician. I'm not saying there aren't punk rock bands who are incredibly proficient players, because there are plenty. But that was the great thing about punk rock. You didn't need an expensive recording studio, and you didn't need to have gone to music school for the last 20 years to get good at your instrument to express yourself. So it was people who wanted to express themselves, expressing themselves. Why? Because they wanted to be heard, because they wanted attention. Beto O'Rourke has been doing things to get attention, to put himself in the spotlight for a very long time. Complaining that he's getting more attention from the media is like saying, "Oh man, why didn't I get on Twitter first?" It's like comedians being like, "Damn that Dane Cook, he only got all the attention because he's on MySpace." Or was on MySpace. Remember that thing? MySpace 100,000,000% launched Dane Cook's career. Were there other people that were just as funny as Dane Cook? Comedy is a very subjective thing, but let's go out on a limb and say yes. Were there any other comedians that managed to capitalize on the real first social media explosion the way Dane Cook did? The answer is no. He really nailed that one. The same way Beto O'Rourke managed to nail the media falling in love with the idea of a presidential candidate, of a politician who wore Metallica t-shirts, skateboarded, looked a little bit like a Kennedy, and used to play bass in a punk rock band. The attention he's getting is because the attention he is getting is because he is good at courting that attention. Is it unfair that his style is winning out over somebody else's action and substance? Yeah. If you want to look at it that way, yeah, it is unfair. But the answer to all of this is not saying, hey, he's a white male, therefore this is unfair. Calling somebody out because of the color of their skin, calling somebody out because of their gender, this is the party of saying that's a no-no. And you know what? You're absolutely right. That is a no-no. So why do it? Why do it? I don't understand it. I do not understand it. It is one of the most self-defeating, knuckle-dragging things that we as a people could do, is to vote for somebody based on the color of their skin or their gender. So why let the fact that Beto is white and male come into it? Do you understand? Because, well, I do, but it makes no sense.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950. Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radioland. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
The college scandal fallout continues. This is interesting. In the February issue of Men's Journal, William H. Macy said, "Never lie. It's the cheapest way to go. Lies cost you a lot, and they're never worth what they cost." Yeah, I have a feeling this lie is going to cost him an awful lot. Potentially his entire career. Have you been following what's been going on? Last year, Lori Loughlin told Us Weekly that John Stamos told her she should write a book on parenting. And in a YouTube video before she graduated from high school, Olivia Jade said she's, quote, literally never at school.
I'm excited to go do the school prank, but I'm also literally never at school. That I think my class doesn't even, and maybe they forget I go there.
Oh, yeah, and there was this. In a video from 2017, Lori Loughlin joked about paying for Olivia Jade's education. What an expensive education this has turned out to be.
What was the word? The line is England is my city. I was going to ask if you knew that was from, but I knew you would never know what that was from.
I don't know what England. If you would have said England is my city, I would say, why did I pay all this money for your education?
We're going to leave it at that.
Oh, the grim and dripping irony. And you know what? I bring this up not necessarily to poke fun at the grim and dripping irony. That is an amusing diversion. Yeah, that's for freaking sure. But I bring it up again to kind of reiterate what we were talking about last week. Look, here's the thing. Lori Loughlin's daughter, as it turned out, did not need a college education. Lori Loughlin's daughter has done just freaking fantastic on YouTube. And I want to talk for a second about YouTube and millennials and the idea that you could invent Snapchat and be a gazillionaire worth more than the New York Times in about a week and a half. As much as people that have, and Generation Xers, I think, are especially wary of this because Generation Xers have done that whole thing. They didn't get what their parents did. They didn't get what what the booming previous generation got, i.e., the clear path to success. The go to school, get a degree, get a job, live happy life. Live happy, easygoing life with weekends and summer times with your kids and your family. No, that doesn't exist for Gen Xers. Gen Xers and Y folks, are Ys millennials? I don't know. But that Gen XY generation, you and me basically, we have seen things like overtime dwindle. Like, economists did a study on this. Back in the day when our parents were working, they were getting a whole bunch of overtime. They were getting their salary, then some. Their college education was significantly more affordable than ours, way more affordable than any kid thinking they might go to school now. And they got, like I said, a bunch of overtime and a bunch of other interesting things that basically meant companies weren't cutting corners. Companies were more than happy to pay you time and a half for doing extra. Nowadays, I don't know if you've noticed this in your place of work, but I've seen it everywhere I looked, and I've talked to friends about it. Not just in the media industry. A company will do absolutely anything they can to avoid paying any kind of overtime. They'll hire 6 part-time employees to work for a half hour each a week if it means not paying you time and a half to do something. The boomer types had an easier go of it. There was a more clearly defined path to success. Go to college. Get a degree, use that degree to get a job, and then have a job that sort of treated you with respect. Let you have a life. Let you have things like overtime and time off and, well, recognition for your achievements. Now, like I said, on the backs of the financial crisis and out of, I don't know where exactly it comes from, but companies are freaking stingy. And I think part of it is the new norm, because that's what you got to be to survive, especially coming out of the challenged economy that we've come out of. So here we are, having maybe gone to college, gotten massive student loans, and work constantly, nights, weekends, all of the above, couple different jobs, because our normal job won't pay us overtime or give us real vacation. Like, we used to talk about the luxury of money. Now that luxury is time. We are all running ourselves ragged, working for companies that do not care about us in the slightest. Do not care about that college degree. Do not think it warrants us the right to be treated with respect. It's just the way it is. I'm not complaining. I'm just noting. And if you are a millennial and you see Generation X and Y spinning their wheels, dying broke at an early age because of heart disease that your health insurance didn't cover. If you're growing up and you're seeing that happen all around you, and then you see, on the other hand, hey, you can make a whole bunch of money on YouTube, just kind of, I don't know, unwrapping boxes of stuff that you like playing with. You can kind of be an entrepreneur. The level of entry for starting a company and a business is basically a cell phone and some ingenuity now. Not everyone was going to succeed, but plenty have. And who could blame a person for wanting to pursue that? The previous generation, well, they got reamed. Gen XY, they were too late to the digital age to truly capitalize on it, except for a couple of really forward-thinking bright sparks in the 90s. But kids now are looking at a college education going, why the hell do I need to do this? I'll just get certified. Learn how to code, and make $80,000 a year. Yeah, there's numerous institutions, trade schools, if you will, digital trade schools, that you don't have to pay to go to. I know. You don't have to pay anything up front. You go. I mean, you got to figure out how to eat and survive while you're going to school, but it's a short course. It's less than 2 years, I think. And they don't ask that you pay back the money it costs for your education until they land you a job getting 80 grand a year. If you're seeing that paradigm shift, if you're seeing the ability to go out and create stuff, if you're seeing that there's something different, better for you out there than working your ass off, going into massive debt to get a degree that is not necessary in 2019 and beyond, why would you do that? Who cares? Who gives a damn? And, you know, people give millennials and younger a hard time for wanting to be internet famous. When they say they want to be internet famous, yeah, they might be driven for the desire to have some notoriety. But I think at this point, it's transcended that. 12-year-old kids want to be influencers. They see it's a great way to make a living, doing things that they love and enjoy. And if they've taken a look back at what their parents' generation has done and the place they're in, that's going to start looking pretty good. So as much as people want to dog young folks for going, I just want to start a blog and get paid for that. Nah. I have a hard time poking holes in that one. I really do, when you boil it down to its component parts. And this whole thing, this whole scandal of Lori Loughlin buying her kid's way into college. If there's one thing that comes from this, I hope it's not that we get an opportunity to sneer at some privileged kids who game the system, or at least who had parents that game the system and got them into a college that they probably didn't deserve to be in. I hope it takes a really significant chunk of the credibility that expensive institutions of higher learning have amassed over the years, because, well, they need to be called on what they're doing. They're not these bastions of integrity. We see that now. If you can just weasel your way in like that, if you've got enough money, well, that's clearly not cool. And it clearly makes a degree from one of those schools seem a little less weighty. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. So I hope if there's one thing that comes out of all of this, is that it makes us rethink education. What is it for? Learning is a wonderful thing, and we should have a right to do that. You shouldn't have to be fabulously wealthy to afford tuition. You shouldn't have to be fabulously wealthy to game the system so you can get your kid a shot at paying that exorbitant tuition. You shouldn't be X'd out of a job because you're a couple of physical education credits short of a degree if you can code up a storm. And that's the direction we're going in. And look, there's no one, despite the fact that I never went to college, there's no one who is going to trumpet on and on more about the value of an education. And hopefully, this gets us closer to the true nature of what an education should be and the true value of what an education can do. And that is give you hope, give you options, and give you a chance at being more than you had an opportunity to be without that education. Not the sense that without your parents buying it for you, you're gonna fail.
more AD on the radio.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about food recently and what you and I put into our bodies. And here's the thing. I think since you and I grew up, things have really, really changed. And look, there's probably a lot of people that are going to tell me, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? You're just realizing this now? How are you not dead and buried in the ground? Well, I mean, I think you got to temper everything with some realism. And I think you got to temper everything with, well, a bit of a balanced, non-hysterical perspective. But my kid sister having a baby, my beautiful, perfect niece, Ellie, she's done what all new moms do. Started thinking about what it is her kid is eating, and justifiably so. But the deeper she's gotten into it, the more she's realized, oh man, there's some stuff that is a regular part of food nowadays, just fruits and vegetables. I mean, you think fruits and vegetables, and I'm not going to give my kid sugar, and that should be enough, or, you know, no artificial colors or flavors like our mom raised us. Our mom was super strict with all that stuff. No artificial colors, no artificial flavors, no added sugar, no chocolate, no caffeine, all this sort of stuff. And we thought that was ridiculous, and we thought that was overkill. But now my sister's kind of looking at what my baby niece is getting and going, man, with regard to pesticides and genetic modifications and things of that nature, there's some stuff going on now that there was not happening years ago when we were kids. I'm going to start paying very close attention to the food that I give my kid. I'm going to start trying to grow as much of it as I can myself. And I'm going to start trying to really focus on buying organic and feeding my kid organic, just because, well, there's all these things that could apparently eat a hole through the lining of your stomach wall that are in pesticides. There are all these things that could do serious long-term damage to a child that is attempting to develop in the right way, that straight up weren't in food when we were at a young, fragile developmental stage of our lives. Maybe we've forged our digestive tracts and our brains and our guts like a sword in the hot fires of artificial additives over the past several years. Who knows? I do not. But when my sister started talking to me about it, I was like, you know, I really do prefer that you give my niece organic food whenever possible. I really do prefer that you grow as much of your vegetables at home as possible. I get it now. I understand it. Thinking about this young, perfect, unadulterated life, you want to be very, very careful about the things that you put into that tiny developing body to give it its best shot ever. Because, well, as Nathan McIntosh points out, organic food wasn't always organic food.
If you are going to be healthy, you have to get organic food, right? Have to get organic food, and that's so expensive. And organic food at one point in time was just called food. It was just called food, and then they modified food, and they were like, well, we can't call this modified food. So we'll call modified food, food, and food, organic food. Now you got to make a real decision with yourself when you go to the grocery store. Like, do I want the good strawberries? They're not going to hurt me. Nothing wrong with them, but they're $5. Or do I want the modified strawberries that are huge, too? They're pulsating in the package. You can't even close the lid. They're picking fights with blueberries beside them. But they're $1.75. It's been a rough month. I hope these strawberries don't attack my kids.
We now get into the events of today in our segment, My Witness News. Did you hear which reality television show superstar was recently busted with a super addictive street drug? Now, I don't think that you, me, or any of us had been laboring under the illusion that this was an especially classy person. But even if you're not an especially classy person, this is bad news. Mama June from Here Comes Honey Boo Boo. Did you see this? Mama June from Here Comes Honey Boo Boo was busted with crack. God, how embarrassing. What were you thinking? Crack? You know when you hear something that leaves you devastatingly shocked? Yeah, this is not one of those times. Ironically, though, this is the more pleasant option when it comes to hearing a story about Mama June's crack. See this? In the spirit of the press being the true enemy of America, President Trump is threatening to launch a federal investigation into Saturday Night Live. Yeah, Trump's going after Saturday Night Live, threatening a federal investigation. You know, it's interesting because, look, you may like Saturday Night Live, you might not. You might think that they're running Trump down and that's anti-American and all of the above. But it's an interesting time to be a comedian because comedians have always had unique access to the truth. So one of the things that attracted me to doing, I guess, what would you call this? A satirical show about politics? Because, you know, not MSNBC, not Fox, not C-SPAN. Kind of having a laugh. Starting a conversation. And hopefully bringing people together. Hopefully getting closer to the truth. And that's the big appeal of satire. That's a big appeal of comedy to me with regard to our political process. Comedians have always had unique access to truth that traditional journalists have not. And launching a federal investigation into Saturday Night Live, because you can't take the heat. Ooh. There's a slippery slope. We're on it. That said, President Trump threatening to launch a federal investigation of Saturday Night Live, in one sense, I'm with you. Only because I would also like to know how the show is still on the air. It's more hilarious than anything that's actually happened on Saturday Night Live in the past 20 years. Hey, did you hear how people are weaponizing dog poop? Yes, weaponizing dog poop. Oh, man. Oh, man. Police in Canada are investigating a claim by a man who said he was struck in the eye with a bag of dog poop while he was in his car. And apparently, this is not an isolated incident. This has been happening a lot. People have been weaponizing dog poop. It's terrible. It's embarrassing. Could do horrible things to your health and your vision. And you can understand why they're really giving people the stink eye over it. Yeah, see what I did there? That was cheap. Hey, speaking of all things excretory, this is an interesting one. Do you use your phone when you're on the toilet? How often do you use your phone on the toilet? If the answer is always, you are not alone. And you know what? I can sort of understand this, only because think about what your phone is. Your phone is the new book or the new magazine. And if you have, I don't want to be indelicate here, but if you have to take care of some lengthy business while in the necessarium, I think what our parents used to do was take magazines in there. Take the paper in there. Oh, what a revolting thing that was. Did your dad used to do that? Disappear into the bathroom with a paper under his arm. You knew that it meant that it was going to be there for the long haul. It was just entirely too much information to force upon any of our young minds, yet we all had to cope with it. If I ever have kids, I'm never doing anything like that. And it will be easier in the digital age because you just have your phone. You don't have to give people the early warning of tucking the newspaper into a fold under your arm and heading off to show your digestive tract who's boss. Yeah, phones are the new books and magazines, so I suppose it makes sense that 57% of people said in a recent poll that they use their phone in the toilet all of the time. It's way more popular with young people. 86% of men and 84% of women under 30 say they use their phone in the toilet every day. Men are almost twice as likely as women to say that they use their phone every time they go into the bathroom. Now you know. You are welcome for that. Have an awesome night.